fans, and if you're here and joining us today to learn more about the debacle of the Hawaii bid to the MLR, well, you're in the wrong place, man. This is Texas Rugby Monthly, the new home of Texas rugby news and updates and everything going on within the great state of Texas. On this episode, on this episode, we'll talk about all the goings-on for the Texas MLR teams, discuss the current state of rugby in Texas as it pertains to COVID and actually getting back and returning to play. Fingers crossed, a little bit is happening more and more. But first, we want to welcome our first guest to the show. And for those of you that are familiar with Texas Rugby Union right now and follow on social media, you're probably familiar with him. He is the data guru, and he's so much more. We'd like to welcome to the show Gordon Hanlon. He is our first guest for Texas Rugby Monthly. Gordon, how's it going?
Pretty good. Welcome to my car.
Hey, Gordo.
Hey, Grant.
Welcome. That's all right. We've all lived out of our car at one point of our lives. It's all right. So for those that aren't too familiar with you, Gordon, give us a little bit of a background of who you are. You have a rich history and repertoire of different teams and organizations you've worked with. Your credentials are limitless, I think, right now as it pertains to rugby. But just at a high level, you know, for those listening and watching, who are you?
That's I'm been very lucky in life. So I'm originally from Ireland, and I moved to Texas about actually Thanksgiving 2009. I got involved with rugby there and fell in love with it. And I was involved with rugby in Ireland, but not really in a serious level. I got lucky with an opportunity in South America, and I was there, and I came back, and I just kind of like I've taken opportunities. I was involved with the Texas All-Star team back when that program happened, the counties program in 2014. So I was doing analysis there, and that kind of led from one thing to another, and I got to go work for the U.S. women's side. And from that, my coaching kind of kicked off, and I got lucky, and I got to live in New Zealand and work at the Crusaders for a bit, and then back to Europe and did some international rugby and then some amateur/semi-pro club stuff.
Nice.
And moved back, just before COVID hit. Actually, just came back to the States.
So you've been all over, but why Texas?
Well, 10 years ago, I was offered two jobs, one in New York and one in Texas. In New York, they said they'd put me in a hotel for 2 weeks, and then I'd find my own apartment. And Texas said they'd give me an apartment, a car, and an iPhone for a year.
Oh.
So.
I'd take that deal too.
Yeah, it works for me.
That's
That
no
deal
brainer.
right now.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how I chose this place.
Nice.
How did you end up with Dark?
I actually, because I worked at the Dallas Country Club in Highland Park, and I happened to drive past Lake Highlands one day, and they were playing. So I just googled rugby there, and they went with them and got in touch, and that's how it started.
Nice.
Good stuff. And so, you know, I guess you're involved in a lot of different. Are you doing strictly coaching now? Or, I mean, obviously we know for those of us who are kind of close with the Texas Rugby Union, you've been doing a series of broadcasts and kind of with data and analysis. What's been kind of the goal for you, and how did this kind of come about? Separate from your coaching and the actual coaching that you're doing.
Yeah. So I've been coaching. I've been very lucky to work with like Jules McCoy and Rish at the ARPTC for the summer season. Mm-hmm. So I was doing coaching there. Now we're moving into a more performance-based module leading into the fall, which will hopefully we'll be able to defend our title in the Barbados Sevens in December. So in the ARPTC in the fall, I'm going to do technical coaching and then run the analysis for the whole program there. So that's that tied into I think Wendy was talking to someone that knows me about the fall series and what she was hoping to achieve with the online content, and then someone put my name forward and they contacted me, and I came up with a proposal, and we went with that.
Well, I won't admit it was not me that put your name forward, Gordon.
Yeah.
I have put your name forward for other things, but that was not it.
Yeah. No, I know. It was. I know who it was. So.
So
Gordo, you've had
in terms of coaching. So I know you're doing all this data analysis and everything, what coaching goals do you have for, let's say, the next 3 years?
I'm a firm believer. Well, okay. So the idea would be to be involved at the international level at the 2023 World Cup in France.
Gotcha.
With the U.S. squad or with home?
It won't be home.
I think we're gonna have to wait till 2031 for Ireland to win the World Cup under Gordo.
No, that won't happen. That goal is 2035. But no, the US would be nice. I think I could contribute a lot to it. COVID and the bankruptcy has thrown a spanner in the works, obviously, for a lot of the teams. But no, I'm not. The goal is just to get the experience and to make a difference at a World Cup, and then to go from there.
So, Gordo, your thoughts on TRU, Texas rugby? Not necessarily rugby nationally, but just in the area, the things that you see needing improvement, things that can be done to improve, especially at the coaching and data, analysis piece.
Well, I'd say one of the biggest issues is there's no coach development statewide. There's just not. And when you ask about it, it's brought up, well, that's USA Rugby hasn't done any coach development. And what I liken it to is, like, if you go to a steakhouse and you order a steak and your waiter brings everyone else's steak but doesn't bring yours and then disappears, and when you ask where he is, someone else says, oh, he's out the back having a smoke. You're not just going to accept that and sit and wait. So if the national body isn't providing us a service and not doing coach development, then I think we have to kind of take things into our own hands. And like, what I think about locally is I think we've got a lot of great legal minds, we've got a lot of great salespeople, but we really don't have that much imagination. Like, every proposal I feel, I don't want to generalize, the majority of proposals I see are things in place. They're tweaking current systems. They're tweaking this and that. But where's the real ingenuity? Where's the disruptive innovation that can actually put something in place that is going to better the membership, both male and female, both high school and senior club, and make us, I mean, everyone's proud to be a Texan. Everyone's proud to be in Texas. But does our rugby live up to that level of pride?
It's a good. I mean, that's a good question to ask people for sure.
Yeah, you take 2.5 teams out of our state, and what does the rest have?
Disruptive innovation is not exactly something that is applauded or lauded, right?
No,
it's not something that's awarded in this level.
No. But anyway, we could talk all day about this, and I'll get in trouble for saying things.
We've got time.
Okay. I understand where he's coming from, because disruptive innovation is kind of what's happening right now in the league, and we'll talk about that later. Gordo, you've had a lot of these presentations in your back pocket for years. You did the series on different attack modules with Aaron Castro. You and I have talked about all kinds of different stuff. What I really like is what I call your X matrix, about how a holistic rugby is. Do you think that is part of your disruptive innovation that you're talking about? I think it is, but I'm just curious where you think about it as.
So we talk about lack of imagination. The majority of teams in the state will play the same. They play varying minor tweaks of a 1-3-3-1 shape. Some teams try to play a little bit differently this past season. But when you think about rugby is an invasion sport. There's only 4 elements to an invasion sport. It's attack, it's defense, and then the transition from attack to defense and defense to attack. And that's the X matrix. So basically, you take a piece of paper, you draw a big X in the middle, you put attack on the top, defense underneath it, and arrows either way. And when we start to think about the game like that, then we become less reliant on what we see on YouTube or on the internet. And I think that's a big problem is with the coach development. We're teaching shapes and we're teaching drills, but we're not, or it's not being taught how to actually come up with your own game or drill or exercise. And that was something I did at the ARBTC at the summer. I challenged myself with the other coach. It was like, you give me 3 outcomes that you want done from my session. And he just gave me the outcome, and I tried to create a new game or new drill or new exercise that I'd never used before every single time. Now, I will tell you, 1 or 2 of them were absolutely terrible and didn't work. And even me, I was like, okay, ladies, let's just scrap this. But when you're constantly pushing yourself and trying to think about the game in a new way based around your core principles, then I think you can develop something that's a lot better than what's actually appearing on the field right now.
So you and I have discussed before how a lot of times you either see an attack-oriented team or a defense-oriented team or teams that do both of them okay, but they never really transition well. How do you teach that transition back and forth to that so that the decision-making can be made at the same speed?
Well, the first thing is you have to train both attack and defense at the same time. And if you have this X matrix, what you do is you take 2 things. So let's say we're going to train attack, but you lead into attack every restart or whatever it is through a transition. So you have your cross, and you basically, okay, we're going to work on this and this. And so, for instance, let's say you want to work on counterattack from box kicks. So what that would do is you would start that with a loose ball inside of 22, where a team will play a phase or 2. They'll get set. They'll go into their systems, into their ruck location areas where they want to box kick from. And it only takes 30 seconds to set this up, and then they box kick and exit. And what we're really trying to focus on and what we're really pushing on our dedicated practices about is that counterattack from the box kick. Yeah. So we have that like perception action coupling where we're seeing the flight of the ball, we're seeing the blocker lines, the chaser lines, instead of just setting up a static ruck and say, hey, we're going to box kick from here. Well, not every ruck's going to be in the same position. So even if you add in that 1 or 2 phases beforehand, then we have to adjust, and then we can make decisions based on how many chasers, if they have 2 chasers on the blind side or they have 3, what direction do we go and stuff like that. Again, so I can talk about this all day long, because the transition is something that's really important.
Do you think that, in my mind, so I'd like to try to think it back to where we're at in the U.S. mindset, where rugby isn't instilled as young as it is, where in other countries where New Zealand, Ireland, etc., that people kind of think of it from a defense offense only, because that's American football and that's the mindset that everybody has, like, well, okay, we're only going to play defense, we're only going to play offense now. And rather than saying, how do you blend those 2 together? I think more like punt team,
more like hockey in that sense almost.
Yeah, exactly. It's more free flowing like hockey, exactly. For example. But do you think that stems, like the mindset currently of American rugby stems from that, the history of American football?
I think that could be an oversimplification, because if you look at where the problem stems from, you look at our coach education. That's what everything comes back to in my mind. Our coach education, where we see these attack shapes. There's articles written about the attack shapes. There's videos posted about all the different. As Grant said, I've done some of them. There's articles and videos done about the different kind of defensive shapes, whether you want to play like a 14+1 or 13+2. Yeah. There's very little work actually out there. There's very little information on the transitional phases. We see statistics about, All Blacks scored X amount of tries in a turnover, but how? You don't see what they do. The oversimplification also is, you just bring in, every time you get the ball, it's a 2-pass rule. Just pass the ball twice. Well, it's disingenuous, and that comes down to our coach education not being, yes, it is technical and tactical, but the pedagogical aspects aren't taught. How do you create a game plan? And that's within my next series with the TRU. I'm going to do seasonal planning and game plans and vision and philosophy and stuff like that, and how to create drills and games and practice sessions. But there's that pedagogical aspect isn't taught. You know, how do things like the coach looks into the lights instead of the players, you know, that kind of stuff. Just simple stuff like that you just don't hear.
Yeah.
And I think that's.
And heck, most of our coaches can barely pronounce pedagogical. I can't.
Well, yeah. I know a couple big words.
One of the biggest problems that I've seen, at least in my short coaching career, is that there's not a whole lot of structure to it, right? You go and get your certification, you find a club, you settle in, and you basically coach as you were coached, or you coach as the head coach that you were an assistant under coached. And then you kind of slowly start building your own things, but that's all the education you have. Right. And there's no extra level of, I can't reach out to another coach, or I don't know how to do that, or I don't feel comfortable doing that, and saying, hey, can you help me out with doing these things? I don't think there's as much of that, because people feel like once they're certified or whatever, that, you know, that's the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you've seen it, Grant, but I did a coach development proposal across all the levels from senior club down to high school, and it's a collaborative approach, and it ties into the idea about creating technical coaches. And let's say you take a city, for example, and you find 8 coaches that want to work together. We're going to make 2 of them. They're going to focus on defense for a season, 2 focus on attack, 2 focus on transitions, and 2 focus on set piece or whatever. And just create that collaborative effort whereby we draw our experiences from the high school to the university game to the senior level to women's rugby. And you do create that collaborative approach. And that's what I think Texas, I think we have an opportunity, especially with the way the state is laid out and how there's a lot of great rugby people here. We could create 3 or even 4 like areas of excellence. You know, if I'm up in Dallas, for instance, same for you, Rick. I mean, Dallas could get together and we could have our own little coach program. Austin could put one together.
Yeah.
And then end of season, you know, we can all see how it works and, you know, how we approach things, and we get together and like if you're going to do the TRU, well, it wasn't the AGM. What was the TRU summit?
Summit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have people approaching that summit with a full 10 or 11 months body of work behind it.
Yeah.
So then we get the coaches to sit down, and let's say we take the attack coaches from Dallas. They sit down with the attack coaches from Austin, or even the defense coaches. It might be even better, saying, hey, this is how we were trying to attack. This is what they do at Super Rugby. They say, this is what we were trying to attack, and then the defense coaches go, okay, this is how we were countering it. And then it forces you to get better, because you can't rely on the same old systems year in, year out.
Yeah. Do you kind of have kind of on that, you know, talking about, this is how you attack, this is how, you know, you counterattack, counter defend. Do you have plans further on? I know you said you've got another series coming up, but do you have plans to work with any of, you know, the senior level teams in Texas, as well as any of the MLR teams in Texas? Can you say?
Yeah, no. So I am definitely going to be working with some senior teams. We'll be doing some work here in Dallas. We'll be looking at doing a senior men's club, a women's university side, possibly a men's university side, and then helping out with high school as well. So that'll be, I'll be based in Little Rock starting next week. So I've got quarantine there, and then go into the bubble after COVID test and stuff like that. We'll just leave that at that.
All right.
Is there anything you wanted to finish with to kind of, tell our listeners about what you're going to be doing going forward as far as TRU goes? Yeah, so this we didn't really talk about it actually. The TRU did a series about analysis and the use of technology, and for everything from recording games to creating preview documents and stuff like that. And it was just something I thought that, you know, I haven't seen before.
not just in Texas, but at a national level. I've seen bits and pieces, and you see people talk about certain aspects, but to put a whole series together, I thought might be interesting. I don't know if it is or not. And I know some of it's very boring.
At 300 and something views, so you're up there.
Yeah.
I watched them too, so. I think that's one thing that we lack in rugby in general right now is kind of the data aspect. Like I'm a data junkie. Like I love data. I'm in marketing, so data is my life. But I think one of the things that we do lack in general in American rugby is data and access to data. And the fact that you are putting that out there, and for those that want to go watch it, it's on the TRU's Facebook page or TRU's website. So go check those out. We'll post those links on there too. That way you can go watch Gordon. But I think it is important. And I think that as we continue to grow in the US, the Americans love sports data, like facts. Oh my gosh. Like we are known throughout the world for being like huge on facts. And I think that's one thing that rugby has lacked recently is that data and sports statistics that'll help drive that interest.
Yeah. And the funny thing is a lot of the top teams actually come to the US to learn about statistical analysis, and they find their mathematicians, the North American mathematicians. They're not coming from rugby, but from other sports. And but yeah, so the idea was, I mean, it's not a definitive. This is what you need to do, and this is how you do it. It's more, it was around idea creation, and I tried to do 3 tiers to every video. So, hey, if you're on a limited budget, if you are hoping to be at an MLR level or understand the MLR, this is what's possible. And then take it down to if you are at your club level, or if you're at, let's say, a high performance university level where they have access to more resources, or you are one of the top clubs that has some. So I tried to do 3 tiers and tried to make it as simple as possible. And if you basically like a menu, pick and choose what you like. It all kind of works together, but or people like it. That's great.
And you said just to kind of wrap up here, the next series you have coming out, do you know when that starts and kind of let everybody know what that topic's going to be?
So no, I'm putting some ideas together. It was only decision was made today. So I'm probably going to look into as a coach, I mean, how your vision and your philosophy impacts your seasonal planning, your game planning, and then your practice planning. And then we'll look at some, again, speaking of this more kind of data stuff, but I'm going to also do an episode about players. So your player positions and profiles and relationships. Like for instance, something I've done in a lot of places is I haven't done it here yet, but like if you were to hand a sheet of paper to a number 9 and say, hey, what are the 3 or 4 most important positional relationships you have on this pitch? And they're like, number 10. And like, yes. So now I want you to write out everything you have to do for them to be successful. And I want you to write out everything they have to do for you to be successful. And then you do that for 3 or 4 positions. You get the whole team on board, and then you see what cross-pollinates. If the 10 thinks 9 needs good distribution and fast ball, and the 9 says I need good distribution and fast ball, well, it's set in stone. Then it's an easy. This is what you said you'd do. This is what he needs.
Look at Gordon with the goal conflict management.
Yeah, right.
So I think that'll be something interesting. And again, I was trying to do a series where all of Texas can learn and be inspired and take some ideas. I mean, like you mentioned that Aaron Castro, the earful of dirt. I looked into some of the modern attack shapes like 1-3-2-2 and stuff like that. But there's no point in me doing that for some of the teams that exist here, because it's just not going to stick.
Yeah, it's not feasible this time.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah. So.
Well, Gordon, we appreciate you coming on, man. This has been great. We'd love to have you come back here in a couple episodes or so, and chat even more. If people want to follow you and stuff, all of your stuff is on TRU. Do you have your own personal page or anything that you want to promote? Or
I do. No, it's fine for now. You can post the links later.
You can look him up on Twitter like Flash Gordon.
Flash Gordon, yeah.
F-A-A-S-A?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Underscore Gordon?
Yeah, I think there's 4 A's.
4 A's.
Yeah. Flora, yes. I always wanted to get I always wanted to get a husky because they howl. And when I call them Flash, you go, ah!
Greatest
my goodness.
Okay.
greatest theme song of all time, man. Sung by Queen.
All right, Gordon. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Gordon, good to see you.
No problem. See you, Grant. Goodbye now.
We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Want to thank you again for continuing to listen, continuing to watch. Really want to thank Gordon for joining us. Man, he's wicked smart, right?
Than we'll ever have.
What's that? Right? Like, I will never have that kind of knowledge. Obviously, now we did it last time. We'll do it this time. We're going to go around the horn and really just kind of give our top 3 things that have been going on with each one of the MLR cities, if you will. And then we'll touch base here in a little bit to talk a little bit about the status of COVID and the status of rugby in the U.S. right now. We won't talk about what happened in Colorado and people getting in trouble because that's Colorado.
You
not
just
Texas.
did.
Is that twice? Is that twice that I've kind of thrown a state?
Yeah.
Promotion towards something outside of Texas.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All right. Well, hey, Grant, let's start with you this time, and we'll get you kicking off here.
So my top 3 are the 4 re-signings and 4 signings for the SaberCats. Rugby HTX getting into the TRU men's D1 competition, being accepted into it, and Glendale is the extra team that all of the TRU men's D1 teams will be playing this year. So pretty exciting there for those 3 things. If you look at the SaberCats, we've re-signed Kyle Breitenbach, the ever beautiful DeWitt Roos, Charlie Connolly, and Tomas Morani. So good re-signings there. Solid hands in the first 2. Big hits on Charlie, and Thomas Morani got that boot that just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And then we made a steal. Jeremy Leonard's.
Wow.
How did that
this week?
win?
I have no clue, man. We have no clue how that happened. I still don't know.
Somebody said that was free agency. That you guys signed on social media somewhere.
It probably is. I mean, this late in the year, that's what it's got to be.
Yeah, because here's the thing: Seattle hasn't. Does Seattle still gonna have
nothing?
They've not they're the only one. Like
they half announced, I think, through the rant that Matt Turner was going to be a player coach.
Yeah, they did, and that the other player coach. Why is his name slipping my mind, is not going to be with him this year.
Phil Mack.
So Phil Mack, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So got 3 other big signings to talk about for the Cats. Nick Katiashvili from Georgia, just fresh out of the Pro d'Etat. Mao Maliepo, which plays at center, and he's a unit and a half. And then the Absolute unit.
Yes.
Apsai Tau Yavuka.
That's going to be another fun one.
So, well, it's easy. Tau Yavuka is Apsai Tau Yavuka, and that's a big man. I mean, that is a really big man. so adding Leonard's and Tau Yavuka in there, that enables them to actually move Breitenbach out to 6, where he actually excels at.
Yeah.
And so when you've got somebody like Luke Beauchamp at 7, and then Van at 8, which I'm hoping Van gets back this year. Haven't heard that he's not, but that's a pretty explosive lock and back row combination.
Yeah, I think Breitenbach when he was, I mean, of course, Austin the first 2 seasons. Former Hunt, love Kyle, great kid. I really think he's a phenomenal player. For me, when he was here, playing at 6, at 6 for me, he's
brutal. He's a problem. Everybody's got to consider.
I mean, you go back, you can go look at old Austin videos. Like there's an Austin video of him literally running with the ball and plowing over a guy from Glendale. And it was just, he's brutal. Well, and his tackling is through the roof.
He's the only person I've ever seen put an Atamalifa hit on Atamalifa. I mean, seriously, I watched that match, and that was the same match where Atamalifa ran into Derek Summers and the referee. But later on in that match, Malifa tried to come weak on the scrum, and Kyle just met him. I mean, he turned back inside, and Kyle was there, and it was ugly.
Yeah.
So
to having a full roster.
What's that?
How close are the SaberCats to having a full roster now?
Well, I don't really. I'm not involved in any of that, so I don't know the answer there. I would say that they're probably closer than we expect.
Yeah.
I know that Rugby HTX, we have a full roster of 39 players. I'll be putting out a press release on that here in about a week or two, probably a week.
Congratulations.
And
congratulations on getting included for MD1.
Yeah, and I gotta give props to the TRU on this. They did a lot of due diligence, making sure that we were right for the men's D1, and while some people suggested we be down in the men's D2, starting there, it's an academy team, not a club team, so it doesn't operate the same. And in the end, a couple of the D2 teams spoke out what I thought was accurately, saying that, hey, it's not going to be fair to the other D2 teams with this team in D2.
Yeah.
Because that's not what they're trying to do, and it's just not going to be fair. But the D1 teams really need that level of competition.
Yeah, because a lot of them are going to be pool players for MLR teams.
And that's what we're hoping for. I mean, that's our vision, right?
Right.
Is to prepare these players for the MLR. So, but it's a really good mix. We've got 5 under 20s on the team right now, and true under 20s. They can go try out for the JAAs this year. We've got 2 18-year-old high school seniors that practice with us. They can't play yet, of course, but they practice with us, and these are not small kids. I mean, they're not small at all. They're as big.
Really,
they're as big as the guys that are out there, as the other players. So, I mean, we're not talking about some scrawny kids that are just out there trying to get some reps in. I mean, these guys are really putting out, and so it's going to be as we go forward, it's going to be very interesting. We've got a couple of more 18-year-olds that have asked to come out while they're still in high school, and we've got some paperwork for their parents and them to sign off on. But once that's finished, it's good to go. Again, they won't be playing in matches with us until they graduate high school, but they are out there training, and that kind of training. I mean, when they take that back to their high school team in the spring, that's going to be huge for them.
Yeah. Well, that's how it grows, right?
Yeah.
Like if you have a high school team and you got kids who are playing at an elite level, I would consider that pretty elite level. If you got high school kids coming to play with Rugby HTX, like you're getting the coaching, the training, the experience, and you're just close to everything else that is associated with the SaberCats. From MLR side, you take that back to your high school guys, and again, most high school coaches are probably a couple guys who played some years and just coaching in Texas, and you're going to teach all these other kids. You're going to draw more people in, and that's going to give you the basis that you're going to need to move forward with rugby in general in Texas and the U.S.
And then how many 18-year-old, how many high school scrum halves in America have a mentor like Trace Bolstead, who has 2 collegiate national championship wins under his belt, and also has a coach like Taylor Howden to help them with their kicking. When it comes to kicking out of hand, Taylor Howden's probably one of the better coaches in the nation about kicking out of hand. And so, we've got this 18-year-old kid who's, I mean, he's making 15, 20-meter dart passes from the base right now. Yeah.
All right. All right.
I mean, we're kind of excited because this is building on to the next year. And then, we've got a lot of other very good players out there that are, when we're going to put this team together, it's going to be interesting how they function well. And, we've got a week of practice under our belt. Everything's been fitness and long distance passing because of COVID restrictions. But I mean, I think they love it because all their passing's been 10 and 15-meter passes all week long.
I love that at least they can touch the same ball. I mean, we were what, a month in the past, couldn't even touch the same ball. We're like, okay,
well, I mean,
go out and do conditioning drills. I mean, what can you do? You can't touch the same ball.
You should smell this stuff that we're putting on there as disinfectant, man. It works great. I think no, not at all. So I think that the big thing is, I think the big thing, this is a big issue that needs to be considered, is TRU men's D1 has negotiated with Glendale to play each of their teams once in the spring. And I think that's huge because Glendale still has a lot of experience on their team. They're still a very, very good team, even though they've lost a lot of their MLR players to other teams. That of course will hurt them, but as a men's D1 team, I don't think it'll hurt them at all. And that's a big challenge because, as we've looked over the years, Texas teams playing, once they get outside of Texas to play, they've always had a difficult time making sure they get those wins. Yeah. And in D1, we haven't won the national championship. We've had except for last time was Dallas in 1984.
Yeah,
and that's the storied year of Nas Botha being on the team, right? And for those of you who are watching, that was my first rugby game ever to watch live. I was in the Carnegie Library in Bryan, Texas, watching it on satellite dish. Wow. ESPN, Michelob, the Michelob Rugby National Championship match.
Man. Raider those things. Come on, man.
Big sponsor at that.
What's that?
Yeah.
Actually, having a sponsor for that.
Right. Having a sponsor for it. Give me
for that time period.
Yeah,
that's like going back to the old softball days that were sponsored by Schlitz and Pabst Blue Ribbon and all the.
So I mean,
first ever live
deal is that's a big deal. Making sure we get to still play the Glendale team again. I don't know if they're going to be the Merlins or the Raptors. I just don't know. And then I heard that that's possibility of a PRP return next year. Am I hearing that correctly? Does anybody else know?
Yeah,
I've heard the whispers.
Rumor is that the PRP will have some sort of at least a friendly season next year, including all the old PRP teams. So Santa Monica, Golden Gate, et cetera, et cetera.
So, and just trying to finish up here, I think the one thing that I'm most excited about down here in Houston is that the Rugby HTX team, not just developing players to be in the MLR, but now we've got a team behind the SaberCats that are putting pressure on the SaberCats. Yeah. These are the guys that want your position now. And these guys realize that. They realize that that's the goal they're here for. They know the players, that they know in their mind who they've got to beat now. Yeah. As far as play goes. So that's very important when it comes to team player development and when it comes to teams competing.
Yeah. I would say that makes it considerably easier for recruiting or finding scouting talent for the SaberCats.
For sure.
You're going to have to go very far.
Yeah.
To at least get, a good majority of U.S. talent that you're required to have.
Yeah. I think a good base for other teams too. Like this is the goal. We talked about it last time. Is the goal for Rugby HTX? You're creating the developmental program that every rugby team should have.
Professional rugby
team.
Yeah. And if you look at it, 13 of our players are from the greater Houston area. 21 of our players are from Texas. So we brought players in from out of state. we only have 4 players on the team that could be considered foreigners, and they're all lawful residents or they're even citizens now. One of them's a dual passport holder. So it's there's none of them. Everybody's U.S. eligible.
Yeah.
On this squad.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I mean, and that's what I think is a big deal, is everybody's U.S. eligible, and that's something that we need.
Yeah.
That's money not being spent on visas, which are becoming harder, not just harder to get, but more expensive to implement. So all that stuff is important when it comes to the MLR.
Yeah.
Any questions from you guys about Rugby HTX?
I think I know we're kind of like pressed for time for each one of us, but I think coming up soon, I want to talk about, and I know it's addressed in the TRU discussion, is players going up to the SaberCats and coming back down being labeled associate players. I think it's we'll talk more about that another time, but I think that'll be good to kind of discuss for people who are listening and watching, what that looks like, because I think there's
it's cut and dried, but it's not as it's not something that's going to happen as often as people think it's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Their fears about how often it's going to happen are minuscule. I mean, the chances are just not there. Well, my time's up. So who's next? Go ahead.
This as more of these teams start popping up.
And I think that's the worry, right?
Yeah.
What happens if the Gilgronis and the Jackals, in 2 to 3 years have teams like this, if not sooner?
Yeah. Right. It's certainly a goal, I'm sure, for these teams already. It's just a matter of implementation of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for Houston. Let's go over to Dallas here.
Let's go to the best city in Texas.
Jeez.
So
anyway,
they've slowed down significantly in the PR of new players being signed. We had, I think at last count was 17 players on the roster. They just signed another hooker. So if you thought 2 hookers wasn't enough, they decided that a third was necessary. And they got former Rooney Rooster Mike Brown.
Solid player, though.
Who's a very good hooker. He just wasn't getting much time behind the Butcher. I think it's hard for anybody to really get time behind the Butcher at this point. Although he's getting a little bit, up in age, he still looks fit like he was 22. So it was going to be hard for him to get time there. So we're glad to take him.
Yeah, for sure.
But we got a little clog there then at hooker. I'm wondering. I heard initially, actually, that there might be a plan to move Chad to the back row, and I'm wondering if that is actually the case at this point, or some other position. I mean, you saw his fitness. He took the ball 95 yards for a try in a game, running past the fullback and a couple of wings on the way to it. So he could do it. We also, I think the most exciting thing that we had happen as far as signings, so this is my one, is the signings. Kelly Kohlberg of the Reds, who played for the Houston SaberCats most recently, and Matt Frings of the Quins, who's a recent addition to the Quins, but a guy who is also a strength and conditioning coach. Both of the guys are older. Grant, just real quick,
34, right?
Down in Houston.
Grant, you're on mute.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
What did you think of Kelly down in Houston?
Oh, Kelly was a great addition to the team. I mean, he was wonderful in the locker room, always ready to go. And when he did get out on the field, I mean, most of his he really was eager to get the ball, but most of his strength was in defense, and you just didn't see anybody get around his corner at all when he stepped on the field. So yeah, I mean, I think 2 of the biggest losses to Houston over the last 2 years is Kelly Kohlberg and Tim Stanfield, and I put those 2 in the same little bucket. They're strong and not known as well as they should be, and it's sad that the MLR kind of overlooked both of them the way they did.
Yeah, Kohlberg was a national team pool player for a year or two. He's had a lot of injuries, mostly head injuries, over the course of his career because he is an all-out player.
Yeah.
I know watching him play for the Reds for a lot of years. He started when he was young as well, so he's been playing for a long time.
Yeah. He's what, 34?
34.
Yeah, and he's probably been playing men's rugby since he was 15.
Yeah.
That's no lie.
No.
And Frings is, I believe, 31, 32. And people were saying, how are these development, contracts? They're going to be development players. I don't think the point here is development of players. The point here is for them to help the Jackals develop players.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be probably part of development coaching going forward. Both of them come from a coaching family background. Frings has been coaching. He's going to be helping me at SMU this year as our SNC coach.
Yeah.
So he's a guy who can do a lot of different things. Both of them are older. They're probably not going to play for the Jackals unless there are serious injuries. But my expectation
probably more of an associate contract, an associate player.
They're going to help bring in younger guys and teach them how to be professionals.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the biggest benefit that those guys are going to provide the Jackals going forward.
Awesome.
Also,
and if you're a coach that wants the locker room on your side, Spike is the man to have in your locker room.
That's true.
So,
and then I'll call them signings, community managers. So I'm not sure how many teams have community managers, but Alexis Elizondo and Jeff Ackles. I actually met both of them when we went up to the Jackals office in Frisco a few weeks back. Both really nice. I think both just kind of getting their feet wet. But I'll probably be hearing more from them.
Yeah.
As being, one of the leads for the Jackal Den, the supporters group for the Jackals. So I think it's exciting that they are planning in advance to get the community, engaged more with the team. We haven't seen a whole lot yet outside of the marketing blitz because they're a new team. But in terms of reaching out, actually creating some energy in the community, I'm excited to see that they've hired people to do that.
Yeah.
So
I think Rugby ATL just announced community outreach kind of person too for that.
And that may be a thing that MLR just said, hey, this is going to be really important for us going forward. Everybody should be planning for this.
We don't have one in Austin, so I guess, yeah, we need more of that. We've needed more of that.
And then the other thing was the Jackals did eventually sign with the Rugby Shop to join the rest of MLR. So that was the second thing. Third thing is just that, we're continuing on path. I would say the third thing is actually more of a disappointment than it is a good thing for us right now. And that is there hasn't been a combine as Houston has had. There's been talk about combines for months. And I think there's a fear that they may be infringing on local statutes for health and wellness safety by holding one. I don't believe that's the case. If Houston has been able to do it, I don't see why Dallas could not. But I would say a disappointment that we haven't seen a combine. And I think that's one thing that could get the energy up and bring more players into the area is by holding a combine. But we'll see. They're really holding off on a lot of different things. I know that the coaching staff is rearing to go, and it just COVID is killing it.
Yeah, and I think it's the same everywhere. I mean, Austin hasn't had a combine either. I think even last year. I mean, we didn't have the combine for last year's until November, I think, is when we had the combine, if I remember correctly. But again, if you have a combine, if it's scheduled properly, you may get guys coming to the one in Austin, one in Dallas, and maybe another one in Houston if you guys have another one. But it is good to know that Houston did have it too.
Right. I think it makes sense in the long term to have the combines like part of a 3-week tour or something, right? Yeah. Each weekend you have a combine at each location so that players can go around and show their talents at each city.
Yeah,
it's going to take some coordination that's not existent right now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. There's not going to take care of that.
Well, combines aren't that expensive. That's not the
No.
not the real
Expensive
issue.
for the people to travel to each one of those.
Oh
combines.
yeah, that is something.
That's a lot of time.
Yeah, people forget like how big Texas is. Like,
people in
the Northeast.
There's some comments about that on the post that we had.
You could
the sun is riz, the sun is set, and here I is in Texas yet.
Trust me, I know. For those that are listening and watching, this is not my normal home. I'm not in Texas. I'm way north right now, but it is. Driving out of Texas takes forever.
Yeah.
Cool. So, anything else, right? That you guys got?
Speaking of which, I reached out to UTEP. Speaking about driving across Texas, they're in the same situation. So, my understanding is unless you're really out in the boondocks in terms of being a rugby club, we're all stuck. Right.
Yeah, and that's. We can touch upon it at the end, give kind of a high level because not much has changed since the last time we all met up. But we can talk about that kind of to wrap things up at the end. So cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about the Gilgronies. Still the best name in rugby.
Are you saying that the Giltinis don't exist yet?
Man, this is the Texas Rugby Monthly. This is not MLR Rugby.
This is not California Rugby Monthly.
California Rugby Monthly. This is Texas Rugby Monthly. I have, just because we are owned by the same billionaire, I know that they have players. They just, I don't know. Anyway.
But the Gilgronies have put together a pretty serious back line, it sounds like.
Hey, yes, we have. That is probably. We'll say that one for a minute, but I do want to add one of my first big thing, really is. I was looking at my notes here. I was really happy to see that Zinzan, Ellen Puttick, and Mason Peterson got added to the U.S. player pool. Well deserved. The hitman at tight head, man. He had a great start of the season. Really looking forward to seeing what he can do. He's back for, he and Zenny, they've been here since the beginning. So it's nice to see them playing. I think Zenny being US eligible, he's a citizen as of last year. Again, he's got some of the quickest feet in the world. If you watch him when he runs and he makes cuts, he stepped in really well last year at 10 for us. He's not a natural 10, but he stepped in, played the role really well until Kurt Marath and Will McGee signed. So it's good to have him and see that he's getting the recognition that he deserves by USA Rugby for sure. That's one of my big ones. Got a lot of players that Austin did a whole week of like, hey, we're announcing all these players coming back. And there's some that people are like, oh yeah, I forgot that they actually played for you because they were out injured. So Marcelo Torrealba is coming back. We've got Brendan Rams coming back. He is probably one of the most animated people in all of rugby anywhere. I don't care what anybody says. If you don't follow Brendan Rams, follow him on Instagram. It's great. He lives up in Dallas right now, and he does some training. So Rick, you can go do some training with Ramsey.
No.
No.
Not a front rower, not yet.
Yeah, right. Pele Cali, he also is coming back, which is exciting. He's also playing for Counties Manukau in the Mitre 10, and he got in last week, which is really great. If you haven't watched any of that, because we can't hear in the U.S. because nobody covers the broadcaster rights. Don't get me started on that. It's pretty sad, but Pele got in.
You don't have Rugby Pass?
What's that?
You don't have Rugby Pass?
It's not. It's blacked out in there, isn't there?
Oh,
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. No, I don't have. No, I don't have Rugby Pass. We also Frank Halai confirmed coming back next year. That's huge. I think last time we talked about Kurt Marath, like it was mentioned, like nobody really made a comment. It was official. We got that was commented on.
Day after.
Like the day after. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, way
to go. Marketing it at Austin. That's okay.
You said it on the podcast. It was like, cat's out of the bag. We might as well release it.
I mean, we've known. Like,
wait, did we announce it? I think we announced it.
We officially announced that Kerber.
We unofficially announced it. Dustin unofficially said he's already been in Austin and moved to Austin, and then they got on the podcast, and everybody over in Austin was just like, everybody knows.
Yeah, right. But one exciting re-signing that we did have is Michael DeWall. So Lindenwood grad came up with Wes White. I know the issue with Wes has kind of gone on for a while, and his eligibility for U.S. and some of the baloney that was associated with that. That was really disappointing to see him not come play, but really excited to see Michael DeWall come back. He hurt himself at the beginning of the year in training. Didn't really get a chance to play. It was in a cast for the entire season so far. But he's back. He's a force. He's a big kid. He's young. I think he's gonna be a good addition to the team. And kind of looking at it now, we've got a solid. You can look at it and put us. I put it on our Facebook page today. You've got a solid 15. If you count, which would probably be my second one, the one that we alluded to last time that I couldn't yet confirm, but it's been the worst kept secret in MLR, I think. And it got let loose by the Ohio Aviators for the Rugby 10s by putting Bryce Campbell as a part of Austin. But I think everybody knew, who's involved in the rugby community, really kind of like, oh yeah, Bryce Campbell's going to play for Austin. Everybody knew it, but nobody's announced it. And technically Austin really hasn't even announced it yet. So I don't care.
Put it on the board.
Yeah, you put them on the board.
They'll announce it tomorrow.
Yeah, they put their I noticed today they put their little 15 up with the shadows.
Yeah, right.
Everybody was shadowed out.
Everybody's shadowed out. But yeah, I mean, you look at that. So if Bryce Campbell coming in from London Irish, I mean, he's a USA Eagle. He's played with Will McGee. They played together at Glendale, I believe, right? Yes. First season. Yeah. I don't know. I can't remember if it was second season or not. Too. I was trying to think. Yeah. Anyway, they played together, but again, getting a premiership player to come and play, back in Texas, back in MLR is great. Builds up the quality level play. So that was kind of my second big one. And my third big one is if you look at it, Austin has it's exciting because in the past we're like, who is playing for Austin this year? We've always we've never known. We don't know who it is. But if you go, you can build a team 1 through 15 right now, and the back line looks superb. So if you go from 9 out, you're going Pele Cali. I put Will McGee over Kurt Morath just because Kurt's a little bit older, and I think he's going to be there in kind of that coaching role. So Will McGee, inside center, if it stays true, and Adam Ashley Cooper, the contract was 2 years, and he continues to come back, and we sure hope he does. He can play 12, and then you put Bryce Campbell at 13, Frank Halai on one wing, and Roderick Waters on the other wing with Zinni at fullback. If you put anybody that can put Frank Halai back on the wing where he belongs, oh man!
I think you'd want Bryce and Ashley to be switched out. Yeah, I think you want Cooper out at 13 where he can deliver to Zinni and the wings.
Yeah,
and you want Bryce for the crash ball.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. I just went by based on preference on what they normally play.
Yeah,
or what they had been playing. Of course, Adam Ashley Cooper plays. Yeah, he can play pretty much anywhere.
You're here talking about the back line, and I'm just streaming over here that CEO and Ramsey are probably going to come after you.
I know. So, I mean, if you look at the pack, right? You've got in that front row, you've got Wappa, you've got Ramsey, and you've got
Larome.
What's that?
Larome.
Well, you got Larome, but I think so. Yeah, so Larome is coming back, which is great. Larome, great player, but I think that if you look at the starting lineup from last year, in that last game, again we had Tion, who's now playing in Houston. But I try time Tion, but then you've got the hitman, you've got Mason Peterson over there as well, and that the engine room right now is the CEO, Mr. Osberg, and then you've got Cam Dodson, and then we have 3 flankers that we've signed. We don't officially have an 8 technically that we've signed. I know that I'm hoping that Lino Sanitoga comes back because I think Lino is an amazing player. I know there was talk of him potentially going to play with the team where he's from, which is the state of Hawaii. But we're going to talk about that. But I think that you've got Mo Abdominan and you've got Dominique Bailey, who was out injured last year. But if you go back 2 seasons, I said again, like he's a phenomenal player. And then Dom Akina. So you put Dom Akina at 8, and then you have probably the fastest back row.
Maybe. And I think Akina is actually, if he had come to rugby early enough, he'd be a natural 8.
Yeah,
I think it would be too. Yeah, but I think again, maybe that happens. Maybe that'll be the plan.
Really dynamic enough to be an 8.
But that's not dynamic enough?
He is dynamic enough to be an 8.
Yeah, I don't think
and Aquino with his speed, he could be an 8 that could drop back into the back 3 when necessary. Absolutely. And be a counterattack strike like that. I mean, he's such a weapon that any coach that gets him is going to love him.
Yeah,
a lot of things with that back 3.
Yeah, exactly. And again, even if Lino comes back, if Lino does come back, again, still a dynamic, fast, 8 that knows what he's doing. So I'm excited. I think the team it's exciting to see the quality of players that we have coming back and the quality of players that we're starting to bring in with CEO, with Cam Dodson, with Bryce Campbell. So those are my big ones. Just kind of rounding those things out. So for me, it's definitely going to be Zinni and Mason player pool USA. Congratulations to those guys, returning players, and then the announcement. Well, the Texas Rugby Monthly announcement of Bryce Campbell coming to Austin. via the Ohio Aviators 10 post announcement and American Rugby News, and
get 2 months in a row now.
What's that?
And Adam Mashley Cooper official right now.
Yeah, all right. Let's hope so. I mean, I think what we'll have on the Austin Rugby podcast, we'll have coming up. I'm actually going to be interviewing. We're going to start back up next month, but we're going to be interviewing the new coaches, so Sam Harris and Mark Gerard. So they're both going to jump on the same time. Be a lot of fun to kind of chat with them and just kind of get their vision of everything. So we'll see.
You'll have more to talk about next time then, for sure.
Yeah, but let's hope so. Like more signings. I've heard rumors of other signings in positions that Dallas has a lot of players in. The hooker position. I've heard about hookers.
I heard that. I got that.
Yeah, you got it. As a reference back, so cool. So that's kind of the wrap up of all 3 areas. Which one of you guys wants to take what came out of the TRU update as of, I believe yesterday it came out, or maybe today it actually came out officially, as it pertains to kind of COVID and where we're at with everything?
I think we're going to have to wait until what the governor and the mayors digested today. They put that out, and then and I think that's they've got to determine whether that meets stage 3 or stage 4.
Yeah.
And where we're going with that. So it was a little bit rough, and I think that we're going to have to wait probably a week, and maybe the TRU is going to have to call a quick meeting just to make that determination.
Yeah.
But that's something I think is going to happen this week, because today I don't think anybody was ready for the governor to come out and talk today. And then right after the governor came out, the mayor of the 5 cities, all the mayors in the 5 cities in Texas, major cities in Texas, came out and gave different rulings, or slightly different rulings, based on what the governor said. So
that happens, right?
Yeah.
Well, there we go. I mean, as of right now, we know that in the TRU there are different areas, because TRU.
So you've got right now officially the TRU over in Texas and Oklahoma and Louisiana is still stage 3, and Oklahoma and Arkansas are still stage 4.
Okay.
So I mean, and now we've got this announcement came out today on Texas. So I'm sure that they're going to be looking at that, because they were talking about it. I didn't see it on the Red River call notes, but they were talking about it early in the call about what to do there. And the call was put on a hold until the next governor's meeting.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, it'll be interesting to kind of see what the next steps are, right? And see what will be the, I don't know. Like, I know the Austin Bold, they had people at their stadium at 25% capacity, but they spread them out. I know Texas football games, they had people in stands. They had 18,000.
They're going to have fans at the Dallas Cowboys game this weekend. So I think 25%. So
yeah, we'll see.
Fans are coming back. Games are being played in other sports, mostly sports that bring in money.
Yeah, right.
To be honest, and I think we all know that that's the situation.
Yep.
I know that also there's thoughts of, hey, let's go ahead and plan for some stuff late fall, right? I think October is probably too early, but November, December, let's plan for tournaments to get people back up and going. And then if we have to push them off, we push them off. But I think everybody's thinking at this point still, any kind of TRU, RRC, anything that's going to go to national level, it's all going to be played in the spring.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we'll kind of see what happens, and hopefully all ends up going well, right? Like, it's easier to. What is it? It's easier to get everybody ready and then cancel than to try to get everybody, Yeah,
it's easier to plan a tournament and cancel it than to not plan one and have to
have to do it real quick. So
I'm connecting myself into the high school and youth rugby as well.
Awesome.
So I'll give updates as we go forward. Obviously, both of them don't start until the spring anyway. So really, they're just kind of business as usual.
Yeah.
But keeping their eye on the COVID situation.
Awesome. All right. Well, any last thoughts from you, Grant?
No, sir.
Rick?
Man, I'm ready to see some rugby. I'm ready to play some rugby. We're planning on Old Boys tournament in December. We'll see what happens.
Fingers crossed.
You're in Dallas, so y'all are going to have to come up to play.
Well, apparently the Rugby HTX will be playing the Reds as the marquee game that day.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, man, look at that.
Excited. So
all right.
See you there.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be it for Texas Rugby Monthly, episode 2. Thanks for joining us. For Grant Cole, Rick Collins, I'm Dustin Zerrer, reminding you that you always make each day a special day. You know how? Just by being you. And there's no one else in the world like you, and people like you, just like you the way you are. We'll be back next time. Bye-bye.